Hello everybody, this is part 2 of reviewing. I read Onision's entire book, so we're going to, yeah. If you haven't seen part 1, go watch it. It's the video right before this one. Yeah.
Naked woman's knee. It's Greg. Greg is the one who those dress codes were created for, because he's like, holy shit, an arm. So Greg and Abby talk on the phone at home, and they just talk for hours, and they're the only people in the world who understand each other, and it's so deep.
I mean, that's how most kids are, right? Like, when you first start talking to someone, you talk to them all the time. You call each other constantly. You talk for hours and hours on the phone. You fall asleep on the phone. I mean, that's how it always was with me in all my relationships, you know? So, you know, that's normal, I'd say.
I still don't understand what is special about Abby besides having a sad life and arousing arms.
That's all I need. So
Greg's mom announces that she wants her and her kids to move in with her boyfriend, who she's known for a number of months, and has just met her kids. This means that Greg won't get to be close to Abby anymore. Oh, the plot thickens in like the most boring way you could
Greg probably saw that as like a real deep, hurtful thing. You know what I mean? So for him, that was like, yeah, this means a lot, you know? You know what I mean?
Possibly pull out of your ass. But okay. Greg talks about how his wonderful friend Davis keeps him afloat, and how much he loves Davis and wishes he had more friends like him. In a scene where Greg says nothing, it's literally just Davis showering him in compliments and support and joking that he wishes they were dating. And I'm assuming that this is a joke because Greg takes it as a joke, but I love you and I wish you were my boyfriend is quite a lot in the category of friendly greetings. The absolute
I don't know what to say about that.
Davis has with making Greg laugh, complimenting Greg, emotionally supporting Greg is just a lot.
Hold on a second. There's something I have to set straight. Why the fuck are you asking me? Look who's back.
Clearly Greg has never done anything in return for this kid, but he's just like, wow, Davis is such a great guy. I love him. We are best friends. There is this scene where Greg tells Abby that his mom wants them to move away, and it's just bad. It just doesn't read like any human interaction that has ever occurred. It's just, oh God. And I don't care to go full English major on Greg and rip this book apart that way, because one, it's not interesting, and two, we already know that Greg can't write for shit. This is merely a document of my attempt to get through this book. And
I think Greg honestly just does not understand how humans function. He doesn't feel like he's a human. I don't think he ever actually accepted the fact that he himself is a human. He literally believes he is above that. So that is what you are witnessing when you read his books.
I'm just exasperated. I don't care about these characters. I don't want to hear about their boring lives. Abby has no personality traits. She has feelings that are a reaction in some way to Greg's feelings. She shows physical affection to Greg. She has a tragic backstory. Okay. And why should I want to read this? Abby notices that Greg is kind of a dick to other girls, i.e., not making eye contact or paying attention when they speak to him. And he's like, I do it all on purpose so that you'll never doubt me. You'll never doubt that I'm unhealthily obsessed with you and only you. Paraphrasing, but these kids are just so annoying.
That's just interesting.
Now we have arrived.
That's really interesting to me that he wrote that.
Greg and Davis get on a bus.
So weird.
And then they get off the bus. And then they hear shots, and then they get on the bus again to hide. And at this point, we completely forget that Davis exists, and Greg is like, Abby's ex-bad guy McBad shooting up the school. Let me off this bus. And the driver's like, yeah, I guess I'll just let this kid get himself killed.
That's pretty exciting to put in a book, though. Like, a school shooting. Like, that's a pretty serious, I don't want to say it's exciting, but it is. And it's like, to put that in a book is pretty intense. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of cool. Kind of cool that he crossed the line with that. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
His choice.
It's a hell of a fucking climax.
Not an exaggeration. This man's just like, yeah, go fucking die. And so Greg gets off the bus because he has to go.
That'd be funny if that's what it actually said in the book.
Your boy roller skates into a school shooting, and then he just takes him off because there's blood on the floor. R.I.P. English literature. You've had a good run. Greg sees Seth, the shooter.
That is kind of like, if you're going to go in on roller skates, go all out. Like, roll through the blood. Like, the less traction, the better. You can slide through and fucking save people. You could have, Greg, you could have been like an angel, just going through the hallways, pulling people from classrooms, taking them with you, stopping the gunman, just rollerblading through the fucking school. Like, on bloody roller skates. You could have done that, man. Whatever. That would have been a fucking awesome ending to, like, a movie.
Just in time for Jason to show up and tackle him. Apparently this kid's purpose in the story is just to materialize whenever punching needs to happen. So Jason tackles the shooter, Greg just leaves again to go find Abby, and the entire purpose of this shooting is just to serve as trauma bonding for the two of them, because that's romantic. Like, I saw some blood and a bunch of my classmates are dead, but most importantly, there's a girl in my...
Now I'm angry, because I just thought about something. He said, do you think makeup actually helps anybody? Or she said that. And then he said, I think it helps us forget the things that like, he doesn't acknowledge that kids do drugs and get fucked up and fuck strangers to, like, forget about their problems. He always has such a childish outlook on it, or a way that he thinks it should be, like, oh, we put on makeup. Like, no, people don't put on makeup to escape their problems. And they, you know what, another thing they do is they cut themselves. They cut themselves, Greg. Your book is written with, like, bloody letters and blood all over it. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to think that means? Is it about the school shooting? Is that why it's written in blood? Like, no, like, you're being edgy, kind of. You know kind of what you're insinuating with that, but you hate people that do that. It's like, or you think it's so stupid to do that. Like, I don't know.
My bed. Also, Greg's mom just lets Abby live with them and sleep in his bed now. We know that Abby's dad is an alcoholic and implied to be abusive, but we don't know if Greg's mom knows this. At no point is she like, well, I guess it makes sense to help this girl out and give her a stable place to stay while she's dealing with the trauma of witnessing a school shooting. But even if they did explain it logically, there would be no reason for her to sleep in Greg's bed. Just a bunch of kids, I think it was like over 50 kids, which would make it the deadliest shooting in all of U.S. history, by the way. Like, 50 kids need to die, and all logic is ignored.
I mean, it's a book, shit. You could put whatever you want in there. I think the less logic you have towards the climax, and the more emotion and rawness and, like, realness and, like, crazy shit, the better the climax is.
Just so that these two idiots I don't give a shit about can end up in a bed together. So, according to Greg, family members of his murdered classmates are now at a statistically higher risk for suicide and depression, which is the most sociopathic attempt at empathy I have ever read. The school reopens, and on the first day they have this speaker come in who has been sent by the president, and he gives this speech that at best sounds like you put a coherent speech through a blender, and then he's like, oh, the president is coming coming to your school to talk to every kid individually. And it doesn't make any sense. And then they
That is very childish. That is a very childish way to write. You know, it's such a childish thing to put in a book. Like, the president's not going to do that. And I don't know, I'm kind of out of it. My thoughts are going a little bonkers. So if I'm not 100% in this video, that's why.
called the gym teacher on the projector screen in the gym. He was like in a fight with the shooter and he got shot a couple of times, and he's just on this Skype projector to the entire school. All he does is explain his fight with the shooter in graphic detail, and all the kids are like, yes, wow, throw punches, because apparently that's what emotionally touches a room of traumatized kids. This is when we are forced to read the phrase bone shaking. Greg uses a lot of adjectives and metaphors that are just too much. Your bones were not shaken, Gregory. The point of good writing is...
I mean, I've heard that before, like a bone-shaking thing, yeah. There's a toy, a Scooby-Doo toy. It says, I can feel it shaking in my bones. Because people used to say that. It's an old term. Like, obviously, no, his bones weren't literally shaking. But if you've ever felt something very deep and scary, you can actually feel it in your bones. If you've ever been really depressed, there's a book called A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bea. And there's a scene in there where he gets so depressed that he can feel it coursing through his bones. You know, you can feel emotions in your bones. Your brain will create it. So bone shaking, that's what that means.
Is to get your reader to feel what it is like to be in that moment. I feel like he thinks that the more dramatically he describes things, the better it is, which is just not true. This book is just way too much all the time.
I think that's how he feels about life in general, honestly. Like, he feels the crazier it is, the better it is. It's like, no, dude. Not always.
Greg and Abby finally kiss, and I swear to God, if I have to read them go any further, I'm going to need a lobotomy. But we're only halfway through this book, so my odds are not good. They walk by Abby's house.
There's a shooting not even halfway through the book. Greg, that's like third grade level writing, honestly. Was it at least the end of a chapter? Please tell me that.
And her dad is there on the porch, and bad guy McBad number 2, so it seems, just starts yelling some mean, abusive bad guy things, and then smashes a bottle over Greg's head, and it's fine because the police were just there in the corner watching the whole time. Abby's dad gets arrested, and she no longer has a available legal guardian, so I guess she just lives with Greg now because that's 100% how things work.
That is exactly what Greg would want. Greg seems to have a very childish outlook on romance, and it seems like this is the way I want things to be. And in the book, they can be that way. You know what I mean? It seems like that, very much so. And I think Greg would just love to have more control in his relationship. So, like, of course, he would have her move in with him. You know what I mean?
Talks about how much she loves Greg and how he's such a great, generous, beautiful, selfless guy. And I don't know why I keep doing my straight girl voice every time But okay, so she just goes on about how great he is, even though all he did was get hit in the head with a bottle. Like, he never tried to get her out of the situation, get her away from the abusive guy clearly upsetting her. He just stood there and watched him monologue like, yeah, this guy's a dick. Her life sucks. Wow. So Davis is now suddenly being a dick to Greg. And Greg's like, well, he's probably upset that 50 of our classmates got murdered, which is a totally valid reason to be upset. But you know it's not going to be that. You know he's going to be jealous of Abby because everything in this book has to be about their stupid relationship. And then the president shows up at their school. He doesn't have a name. He's just the president. I'm assuming Obama was president at the time that Greg wrote this. So Obama's in this story now. He gets to their class and he immediately recognizes Greg, apparently from the news coverage of the shooting. Meanwhile, why would Greg be in the news? The president's going on about, oh, Greg is important and heroic. What did he do? He just ran around looking for Abby. Why would he be in the news? He got some glass in his feet from running around barefoot because he had to take his rollerblades off because he thought that school shooting was the time for rollerblades. And Greg's like, Mr. President, what do you think of what people say about you in the news? And the president's like, I cannot and do not want to control what people say about me. All I can really fully control is what I myself am saying and doing. I find myself repeatedly stating that I came into office with the best intentions. Some decisions I have to make aren't always fair to me, my family, or many people around the world, but sometimes your only options lie between the end of a slipknot or the blade of a guillotine, and that's the burden I choose to carry. And then he's like, I'm increasing the budget of your school, and leaves. Abby tells Greg that Jason grabbed her butt in class. Clearly a theme here is that every man in her life is disgusting and abusive, except for Greg, who can do no wrong, so long as she compliments him incessantly and has no personality of her own. Greg's mom and...
I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm dealing with personal shit in my own life right now, so like me sitting here listening to the psyche of Greg is somewhat escapism, not gonna lie, but at the same time, it is just not fucking easy to do this. It is, I don't know, somewhat of a relief in a way.
Sister are going to move in with his mom's boyfriend, and so him and Abby just get to live in his family's old apartment while his mom pays for their food and utilities. Bitch, in what world? He goes to the guidance counselor, and she wants to talk about his relationship.
That happens sometimes. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I hear these people, they get so surprised about every little thing. It's like, the shit like that happens.
With
Sometimes.
Abby, which is still super weird, and then she just cryptically implies that it's bad, and then dramatically stares out the window and tells him to leave. And then comes the shower scene, which is just weird. Abby just really wants them to have a conversation while she's in the shower. I get that when you're in a relationship, the boundaries break down a lot, but she's so deliberate about it. She's like, this needs to happen. Okay, dude, I'm going to get naked. I'm going to get in the shower, and you're going to sit in the bathroom, and we're going to have a conversation. Like, okay, like, come in now. I'm ready. I'm in a towel. Let's have this weird conversation while I'm in the shower. This situation does not evolve naturally. Apparently, she can't talk to him if she's not in the shower. Wouldn't that be loud too? But this needs to happen this way so that she can dramatically burst out naked and be...
Movies do that a lot though. You be in the shower, you don't even hear it. It's just them talking. It's like, the showers are fucking loud, right?
Like, look at my body covered in self-harm scars. I'm so broken. But most importantly, there's...
I was about to do a rendition of My Vegetarian Body, but I'm too fucking tired.
A naked girl in front of Greg. Catch me skimming the next few pages as if it will burn my retinas if I look too long. I read this book.
Someone's yelling in the house. Hold on a second.
I love it.
Snoopy is going to keep us company because I feel lonely. I don't know what the fuck's going on in my life. I don't know who to trust and who not to trust. I don't know what's happened and what hasn't happened. So in my moments of a desperate consolation of trying to understand things, he's going to be here. Okay.
In detail, with the exception of the sex scenes. I refuse. This is where the line is drawn. I absolutely refuse. Greg's mom asks Davis to come over and help them pack to move because apparently she doesn't have any adult friends she can ask. She has to ask some random high schooler, which provides a very convenient opportunity for Davis and Greg to reconcile, so they just don't. Davis is still super jealous and uncomfortable around Abby because Greg is just so great and she's taking all of his time, I guess. Davis,
if you were a real person, and this was happening, this goes to anyone in this situation. If a girl's not giving you attention and she's giving it to someone else, she obviously thinks that that guy is better than you. No sugarcoating it at all. So go ahead and prove that you're better. Do something to prove that. Being desperate, getting angry, that's not how you prove it, okay?
This has this really, really painful to read, just completely unfunny childish humor, which is Greg's sense of humor on YouTube, and Greg in the book is just...
So Greg responded to this and said, actually, that was my friend who died. That was his sense of humor. So what you're doing is you're making fun of a guy who died. Like, no, Greg, again, you're being autistic. You're being fucking... You're not understanding. Like, that's not what she's trying to say, obviously. I understand that, like, oh, she thinks she got me, but she doesn't know that my friend died. Would make her feel like shit, because she should. I understand that, Greg. Okay, I understand that.
Endlessly amused. Like, Davis is just the funniest guy ever. And Greg describes him and Abby as being, like, enchanted with Davis, which is just so weird. He's so cringy in every way. And it's kind of unclear which character Greg sees him as in this case, because clearly Greg also wants to be, like, the funny guy that everyone loves being around, like Davis. So it's like, which character are you right now, Greg? Like, make up your mind. Abby hands Greg a note again. These two are terrible at communicating, just cryptic notes, conversation.
Honestly, like, a relationship like that fucking blows. It sucks. It always explodes out of nowhere. You end up getting into fights, you break up over and over again. That's what happens with relationships like that. That's a toxic relationship. You guys need to be open with each other. You guys need to talk, okay? Seriously.
In the shower. Like, they just... Apparently it's too boring to just have a normal, mature conversation. So she hands him a note, and it turns out to be this whole gigantic letter with even more traumatic backstory. And apparently this whole time the guidance counselor has hated her because she's pro-life, and Abby wanted an abortion after being raped. So that's why the guidance counselor hates her so much. This girl's life is just trauma bingo. I'm not trying to trivialize any of these issues. I'm just saying they sound ridiculous coming from a 30-year-old man for the sake of feeding his own dramatic savior fantasy. Like, the only way...
He's honestly like that, though. Like, he's not like a 30-year-old man. He's really not. He's a high schooler.
The story would have any real impact or meaning is if it was told by Abby. But that can't happen because she has no personality beyond being the damsel in distress, and Greg doesn't give a shit about any of these issues beyond their ability to feed his own narrative, and that is the tea. His response to this letter is to dramatically burst into her classroom, grab her, and start making out with her on a desk in front of the teacher and all of the class. Greg and Abby have apparently...
How fucking intense for a high school novel. Awesome. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty epic. That's epic. I mean, that's an epic...
just reached enlightenment. Like, their lives are changed, everything is amazing forever just because they're having sex all the time. Like, the moral of this story is, no matter how shitty your life is, just get into a relationship. Grab the first vaguely woman-shaped cardboard cutout of a person and just have a lot of sex, and you'll have nothing to worry about ever. Jason is still groping Abby in class, and so Greg takes it upon himself to deal with her problems yet again.
If a guy was touching my girlfriend, if he just did it once, I would have a lot of shit to say. If he did it twice, that's when violence occurs, you know?
And he goes to the guidance counselor, and this woman is like, no, I still don't like Abby. And this world where adults act like petty children honestly explains so much about Greg. But so Greg loses his shit at this woman and is like, how dare you? You don't have the right to judge her when you don't even know her, which is so ironic because this entire book opened with a monologue.
I mean, honestly, fuck any teacher that thinks they know anyone like that and, like, just judges people. Fuck anyone that does that. I don't blame Greg for making that a big point.
Talk about how that's exactly what he spends his time doing. And he basically tells this woman that she should blame herself for the school shooting because the shooter probably had mean, closed-minded parents like her. Greg decides that the solution is that he has to confront Jason himself. He manages to single-handedly take on 4 jocks, which I feel so stupid saying the word jock because that's just not a word that people use unironically, you know what I mean? But so he single-handedly takes on 4 jocks by lassoing Jason's neck and kicking some people in the balls, and there was a throat punch in there. He can just do that now. Greg is just standing there, the ground littered with jocks groaning in agony, and everyone is like, oh my god, that's so impressive, Greg is amazing, and the principal storms out and is like, what's going on, children? And all of
I don't know if it's this spiritual entity around me of my great-grandmother who this came from, but all of a sudden I'm starting to just feel all this shit that Greg wrote is just fucking awesome, and his book's awesome, and he's awesome, you know? Maybe Greg is just awesome dude. Because this book is starting to sound fucking epic. I'm not gonna fucking lie.
That's it. And then Jason and Greg have a bonding moment where Greg is like, well, Jason, I'm mad that you groped my girlfriend. You'd be mad if I groped your girlfriend. And Jason's like, wow, Greg, you're right. That's deep. Greg and Abby and Davis decide...
Like, dude, there's a difference between grabbing a girl's ass and groping her on her tits. There's a big difference. Okay? Every guy knows this. Like, if he smacked your girlfriend on the ass, okay, talk about him. Do something, obviously. But if he gropes her, like, dude, that's another level. That's like, he just broke something, you know.
I just skipped school one day and they're driving on the freeway, and this is going to sound like it escalates incredibly quickly, but I promise you, this is exactly what the experience of reading the book feels like too. They witness a man jump off a bridge above the highway trying to kill himself. Davis jumps out of the car to try and save this man and immediately dies because he ran onto a fucking freeway. And Greg is apparently impervious to fast-moving vehicles because he just grabs Davis's body, no problem. Greg decides to blame himself for this because if he had never been born, Davis wouldn't be with him that way to die, which is a bit of a stretch. It's actually a lot of a stretch. This kid died because he voluntarily ran in front of a moving vehicle to save a guy whose suicide you witnessed by freak accident, but it's your fault for being born. It's not even any...
That is pretty strange. I don't know. Maybe Greg actually feels things like that, though. Maybe Greg really does feel things pretty intensely. I'm not sure. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to put that in the book to, like, relate. I really don't know. I don't know.
One's fault that they were bored. The whole I'm distraught because my friend is dead passage also just sounds like a lizard person trying to emulate emotions. It's not convincing. I'm not convinced. Yeah. And now Abby is all he has left in life. Kids, if your only source of joy and fulfillment in life, you're literally the only thing you're interested in is a relationship.
Stop it. Get some help.
Don't even worry about it. Davis's mom is speaking at her son's funeral, her literal child who died dramatically days ago. And this is somehow still about Greg. She couldn't have told him this stuff in private. No, she's up there at her son's funeral like, Greg, I know you blame yourself, but you should know you're just such a good person for pulling his body off the freeway, and I understand why he was so obsessed with you now. You're just such a great guy. And Abby's like, yeah, Greg, you're just such a great guy. And Davis's mom comes over and hugs him in front of everyone.
I don't know what it is now, but for some reason, I just find myself relating to Greg. I don't know why. It wasn't, if you watched part 1, it wasn't like this. I was shitting on everything, but like now it's like, shit. Maybe it's the spirit of Snoopy helping me see that everyone deserves relatability. I don't know.
Davis's mom's speech also is just so weird, and it really highlights to me how...
The reason I say that is because Greg obviously is building himself up because this comes from a very sad place where he feels like things are his fault and he feels like he's not enough, and like that's kind of what I see, or what I'm hearing now.
Everyone in this book speaks like Greg. Like, after a while, you just start to picture every character in this book as Greg in a different wig, because they're all him. It's his voice coming out of every single one of them. It's just creepy. Unfortunately, this is not tea. This is coffee. It's too early, but we had some technical difficulties last night. I'm having a lot of difficulties, apparently. So Greg gets back to school, and he gets cornered by the guidance counselor and this other teacher. And they tell him that they want him to run for school president. This random guy with no friends and no interests besides having sex with his girlfriend. And even Greg's like, you guys know I just assaulted 4 people outside the school the other day. And the guidance counselor, it's implied that she thinks they deserved it, but she doesn't say anything because she doesn't want to be unprofessional. Like, we have found where this woman draws the line, I guess. It's still super concerning. It's still not where the line should be. She's also conveniently forgotten that he told her she was a bad person raising future school shooters, so there's no consequences to his insane actions. That's convenient, isn't it? The biggest plot hole in this book, and if we were to represent the plot of this book, it would be a cobweb, don't get me wrong, but still the biggest hole in this book is that people like Greg. Everyone just thinks he's such a great guy and make it clear constantly. This book is just him living out a fantasy where he doesn't have to do any introspection. He doesn't actually have to be a good person. He gets to be the same weird creep, but this time everyone worships him for no reason. Greg and Abby are walking down the hall, and they see the guidance counselor and some police officers, and they take Abby to the guidance counselor's office. So the issue is that she was dating the school shooter, right? And she wrote some letters that potentially could have inspired him to do it. So they're questioning her about that. And then they decide she's innocent. And the guidance...
I just realized in the first part of this video, I talked about Elliot Rodger and how he thought the same way about jocks that Greg probably does. And now Greg's saying that what she wrote to the school shooter might have inspired him instead of the school shooter being blamed for his actions on his own. This confirms to me what I speculated in the first part of this video, was that if he didn't have as much female interaction as he had, he would have ended up like Elliot Rodger. I'm just saying.
Counselor is very disappointed that she's innocent, but then they get back to Greg's place and Abby's like, but I'm not innocent, because apparently she wrote that she wanted everyone to disappear in a letter to Seth when they were dating, and which is not even close to telling him to shoot up a school or even implying it, but apparently this is a big deal because Greg storms out to go have an angst moment in the shower, and then after long emotional deliberation comes to a completely obvious conclusion that she didn't do anything wrong, and he comes out and he says he forgives her, and she's so happy that he forgives her, and she's so relieved because she didn't. But the guidance counselor apparently yelled loudly that she thought Abby was responsible for the shooting. So now all the students just think that for some reason, and some kids throw paint at her, or they throw paint on her clothes at school, and then the principal gets involved, and he just verbally abuses a student over the carpets getting ruined and screams about everything, and is just a completely irrational NPC, as all of these characters are, and it's just painful to read it. I'm so glad I'm almost done at this point. So the principal gets on the school intercom and announces that Abby is innocent, and that the guidance counselor needs to come to his office right now, so they assume that he fired her. And so that night, the guidance counselor burns down their entire school out of spite. Also, Greg takes Abby's paint-covered shirt and hangs it on the wall because it's about turning their pain and suffering into art and beauty. Hashtag deep, am I right, virgin 12-year-olds? So Greg and Abby go to the site of their burned-down school, and Jason is there, and he's like, I mean, that was pretty crazy, am I right, guys? The guidance counselor admitted it, and she's in prison now. And Abby starts laughing, and then Greg has this moment where I also just picture him like staring directly into the camera like he's on The Office and going, well, I guess this means I can't run for school president now. and that's how the book ends. That's it. That's what we get. So this book is not very long. I got through it in a couple of hours, split over 2 days. Am I going to read Onision's other books? Hell no. Could you probably pay me to? As in, if this video gets very successful, will I? Maybe. I don't have anything left to say about that. Thank you guys ever so much for watching. If you are new here, subscribe to my channel. If you are already subscribed, you know that I post once a week. If you want even more of my dumb face in your life, you can follow me on social media. You can join my Patreon. So, Discord server. You can come hang out on my Discord server. It's a fun time, I promise. I just spilled my coffee on the floor. I need to stop and
Good song. So my overall opinion of Greg is that he probably has two different sides to him. He probably has a side that's like more for women and like, oh, it's not your fault, I want to treat you like gold, all this stuff. And then he has another side that I think, oh, I hate women, they did this to me, you know what I mean? I think it's just a battle inside of his head that just roars out, you know, which I think everyone can relate to just a little bit, at least. Anyways, I know I can a little bit. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'll be back in a flash.